All right, brilliant. Well, we're gonna fire into the questions now. So, Steve, I'll hand over to you.
So, Trent, sales is a word that we, as accountants, sort of get a bit frightened of. It's a word that we don't necessarily like. We try to avoid it. But as Matt was saying earlier, at the end of the day, um, we can talk about marketing till the cows come home, but we've got to, at the end of the day, sell. So, uh, I wanted to start off with your perspective on the fundamental aspects, I suppose, of selling for an accountant.
I think every good sales process, it starts with your customer. That's where everything begins. So being able to go through that sales process, you need to understand who your customer is and what exactly you're trying to achieve in that sales process. I think a lot of people go into the conversation, but they have no idea where they're trying to end up. So they get a bit fuddled around a little bit. And I guess my biggest tip for a lot of people is to try and not necessarily script, but dot point what you want that conversation to look like, and have a goal in mind of what you're trying to achieve at the end of that conversation, and or at least have a strategy in place of what you're trying to achieve from a sales perspective. And as you get better and better at it, you'll tinker, you'll develop, you'll change the way that you want that process to look like. And that's not just in conversating, that could be in terms of material that prospective new clients may receive leading up to the point where you are ready to close and win that sale. And that could be just, whether they're receiving your email blast, they're getting particular brochures and things from yourself, whether you've got a couple of day break in between. A lot of good marketing systems these days will be able to show you the people that have engaged in your material more so than the others. So, we know they're obviously going to be the best people to target and speak to first. But again, a lot of this comes back to just having a plan and knowing exactly what you want to get out of the scenario, the situation, and what that strategy is. So if you don't have any of that, then you don't really have a process or anything close to that.
That's great. Next question I wanted to ask was, so sales training, I think something that a lot of businesses would go through. I don't hear a lot of accountants and bookkeepers getting sales training. Do you think there's value in that happening?
Yeah, definitely. And for a lot of people, they think sales training, and I think they maybe make it a bit more of a molehill than what it is. They make it more of a mountain than what it really is, being that it's just a molehill. At the end of the day, sales is just being able to communicate effectively with someone so they understand your value proposition, and then they want to engage with you to help them in their business. If you can translate and communicate that with your client, that's sales, because that's all you're trying to do really is get them to partner with you and help build your business. So if you can just practice working and communicating what you're trying to achieve with them and why they should use you as the accountant or the bookkeeper or the advisor in that space, then you're more likely to be able to actually be successful and be better at selling. But to that point, you've got to learn how to do that somewhere, and I think for the more successful people I've seen is the ones that throw themselves in the deep end, so going out to doing a lot more networking, things like Toastmasters, if that's relevant for you in your particular country. Anything where you're having to do some more public speaking, that actually helps you bridge and get out of your comfort zone. And we're living in a world of endless amounts of resource and knowledge. There is that many different blogs out there today about speaking to people, communicating your vision, your value, that, we're not in short supply of knowing how to do it, but it all starts with you. You have to kind of point your finger inwards and go, okay, well, what can I do to improve this and make this better?
Yeah, right. So I'm kind of the belief that there are some born salespeople, but anybody can learn that. But I guess at the other end of the spectrum, there are just some people who hate selling. So my next question for you was, do you think there's a case for hiring a non-salesperson in an accounting firm? Sorry, non-accounting salesperson. So just a dedicated salesperson in a firm.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about this last night because a couple of times in a few conversations yesterday. And I think there is definitely a case for hiring a non-accounting salesperson. So you're looking at someone whose all their job is to be able to sell for your firm. That is their 100% goal, focus. That's what they specialise in. The reason that can be a really good thing is because some accountants and bookkeepers, when they try to communicate their value proposition, they're going through a whole bunch of things and stuff that small business owners probably don't need to know. So that sometimes they get overwhelmed with all this information. You're like, oh, I don't even know, like, I guess, but they get lost in the jargon. A salesperson is there to translate and make that extremely simple for that person to understand. And that's kind of where, when you hire a salesperson in your firm, you're getting an expert communicator. You're getting someone that can translate the jargon, make it something that they can apply themselves to, that they can engage with, and then taking them on that journey through a sales process. So hiring a non-accountant as a specialist salesman can be an awesome thing because they're not going over the top. They know what they need to know to get the job done, and a lot of the time you may only have to communicate 20% of what you're talking about. You may not need to go through all the ins and outs of what an accountant or a bookkeeper would go through, but this goes back to what we said before, that accountants and bookkeepers are great at what they do, but when they try and communicate that with non-accounting people, it's very easy to get disconnected where people don't understand what's going on or what's being said.
So I know the objection for hiring a non-accounting person may be that, they don't have that technical knowledge. So what if a prospect or client asks them questions that they can't fully answer? I guess what you're saying is that's actually the advantage that they have, is that they're not as tied to that kind of technician/jargon information.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So don't get me wrong, I think there's always opportunities where you might have the salesperson in the room and you might have an accounting person in the room to support the technical aspects that the salesperson may not have in place. But with the right training, and at the end of the day, you've got to think, you're a small business owner, if your salesperson knows just a little bit more than the small business owner, which is probably the case 90% of the time anyway, then no one's going to know any different. They're going to just assume that you're the salesperson in the accounting firm. He must know what he's talking about. So if that's, like, sales is all about the confidence anyway. So if you're confident in what you're talking about, what you're saying, you've done it a million times because your only job is to sell in that firm, then I would exactly say that it's a huge advantage that you're able to relate to your small business owner, because again, even if you didn't know your content, but you're extremely engaging and the small business owner felt comfortable working with you, they probably, again, wouldn't even notice that you could spend 45 minutes just talking about a sales process and not about accounting. And they probably wouldn't have any clue none the wiser. They just think that they're going to get this amazing service because your person was amazing and catered to their every need in question.
Yep, got it.
Which probably comes on to the next point then of the sales cycle, and something that I speak to a lot of accountants about is having a clear process, a clear onboarding process, starting from when somebody's come to the website or come somehow interaction right through to when you start work. But it is a relationship, and at the end of the day, the accountant and bookkeeper is building a relationship, whether it's started with the salesperson we've just talked about, or whether it started with the accountant. But there is a lifestyle, there is a fairly, can be a reasonable length of time in building that trust to be able to start the work. So a couple of questions that we can see on screen, Trent, some perspective on the fact that it is a cycle, and then how often you follow up and some of the ways to follow up, your thoughts on that. Yeah,
definitely. I guess it's, that sales cycle is really, how long's a piece of string, because every person is in a different stage at a particular time. So for me, when I'm working with people, it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what you're doing, you need to be able to understand what are the next steps. At the end of every conversation you've had with your prospective client, what are your next steps? When are you anticipating to get the ball rolling? What do you want to be doing next? And then within that, you need to have a good CRM, a sales system in place where you can follow up, check in, and make sure you're in place. So, for example, if I've spoken to you gentlemen today about our services, and I said, okay, well, what's next? What do you need to do next to move forward from here? He said, oh, we've got about 2 or 3 weeks before this happens and that, and blah, blah, blah. People are great at putting things off. I said, okay, cool. Well, look, I'm going to give you a call in 2 weeks' time. Is a Friday great for you? Is there a particular time that's going to work best? But I need them to know that I'm going to be keeping in contact with them. So that's from the sales aspect of it. To complement that, you'll have hopefully your email marketing campaigns, or like what we call a nurture bucket, to keep that person engaged. They're warm. You might have found them on social media and Facebook again, so that they can see all of your posts, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. So they need to know that even if you're not physically speaking to them and following up with them every 2 or 3 weeks, or whatever the scenario they've said, you still want to be able to stay engaged with them through other mediums. And the more you can do that, the more likely, again, that they're going to think of you, because all they've seen is you on all their Facebook. So even though you're not directly talking to them, you're still front of mind. So yeah, for me, that's a great cascaded approach between online and offline connection with that client. The best way, I think, for following up, like to get that result, is really just be attentive to your client, like understand exactly where they're at and when they're likely to come through. You're only going to understand and know that by building that relationship with them. So for me, again, to my scenario before, if I was working with you both, if you've said that you need weeks, then I won't call you again for 3 weeks. If I break that and I'm hassling you week on week, then you're just going to annoy people, pester people, and they're like, oh, I don't want to work with you because you don't respect my boundary. So if you've got a CRM system in place, which you really need to as you move into this focus on selling, then you'll set reminders for yourself. Cool, I need to follow this person up. They're better to be contacted on a Monday, not a Thursday. If you're a tradesperson, then again, it's being smart. You know that they probably won't answer in the morning. You're best to catch them at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So these are the kinds of things, and they're very little things, but things that people don't think about. But the more attention to detail you pay to your customer, the more respect you give them along that process and journey, the more likely you are to win that client.
The other aspect of that, sometimes accountants want to rush to start work. What I mean by that is we also need to think of the sales cycle as there's 2 sides to that. One is you're trying to determine whether, one is that you're trying to convince that potential person that your services are applicable. But the other side is you also should be utilizing the cycle to determine whether they're actually going to be a good client. And sometimes that might slow it down a little bit, but use that as some hurdles to ensure that you're actually using that sales process as part of eliminating the bad clients. Too often, accountants and bookkeepers just rush to take on anybody.
Yeah, I completely agree, and you see it all too often, especially with new accounting and bookkeeping firms. They are ready to just take on anyone, whatever price. Like, oh, my hourly rate's 65. Like, oh, we only want to pay 40. Okay, I'll take it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of reverse negotiation because they're so desperate to get their first lot of clients, but that's what ends up stinging us down the track, is that we've built our business up, but then we're still carrying all these clients that belted us down on price, and we were so desperate back then to get them. But yeah, to your point exactly, Steve, it's you can't sort of that cycle is so important, and you want to make sure if you can find a method and have that qualification in place where you only work with premium-based clients, or you're only getting clients on board that are going to work within your parameters. You don't want people that are dragging the chain. Then that comes back to your salesperson. What are the key things to call out and look for? Over time, you will know what a good client looks like and what a bad client looks like, and what a bad client or a troubled client. If they're dragging the chain and it's taking you a lot longer, and they're the person that's always got a rebuttal and they're pushing things away, then you probably know that they might not necessarily be the right client for you. So you may keep them closer to, or put them in a nurture bucket, so that it's all followed and engaged with on your social media side, because again, they may change, it might come back to you later, and focus your efforts on those clients that you know are going to be your cream, the ones that you really want to be able to work with, and they're not going to make life hard for you at all.
That's awesome, Trent. That stuff about the sales process was incredible. I think that attention to detail is a really overlooked aspect. That you know, the process is just as important as what you're selling. One aspect.
That experience, that customer experience. Sorry to cut you off, Matt. I just, as I was thinking about it, but when we think about attention to detail, we also talk about what's that unique customer experience that we can deliver that the guy up the road is not delivering to us. And a lot of the time, like when I do a workshop with a room full of people and I say, what's that unique customer experience you've had? It doesn't matter what industry, what it was. And I get a few things. It could be a great night out at a restaurant. It was the packaging I got when I ordered something online. It was the fact that I got something delivered to me within 4 hours of ordering it online, or whatever it is. Everyone's got their own scenario. Everyone values different things. So if you can find that little 1 or 2% things that make people go, wow, they really care, like that was different, that was an experience, then the rest of it just becomes so much easier. And that could just be the way that when people walk into your firm, they look around like, oh, this is nice chairs, great rug, great mat, all that stuff, like all the little things. Like you're thinking, what are the senses that people pick up? Sometimes you walk into a firm and they've got these industrial grade rubber mats on the ground, it's dirty, it's cold. What sort of scene are you setting? And I came from a retail background before I jumped into this amazing world of the accounting industry. And customer experience was everything. So every morning before we started, you had to walk in to pretend you were the customer and then think, okay, what do I see? What do I like? What's the first thing I look at? And naturally, when you walk into somewhere, when we read a book, we read left to right. So when we walk into an establishment, wherever, naturally we look left and then we work our way right. You should be doing the same thing in your own office. Walk in, what's the first thing you see? How does it smell? What's the warmth like? What's the temperature? What's the lighting? These are the little things that you can fix because it adds to that customer experience, and you're trying to get people for a good rate at whatever you're doing, then you need to be able to deliver on the little things so that they know they're working with people that are considering them. It's not just all about you, and they're not things that you should be overlooking. So it's important to have someone that's in charge of that quality control, that customer experience. So even when we talk about having a salesperson, a focused salesperson, that person really should be a customer experience person, because at the end of it, if they can deliver an awesome customer experience, the sale will come through anyway.
Yeah, definitely. So you've partly answered my next question, which was, do you think firms need a CRM? You do. Could you just give a bit of background on that in terms of, well, first of all, if anyone doesn't know what CRM is, maybe like customer relationship management software, kind of how to use that, and maybe some recommendations for software options?
Yep, definitely. So my best example for a CRM or customer relationship management, as I mentioned before, I used to work at eWay, which were the kings of online payments here in Australia. That was the way they would do it. But the reason they were so successful was because they had an amazing CRM system in place and a structure that meant that you could put anyone in that chair with the phone and the headset, and because of the way they structured the CRM, they were always guaranteed to make a certain amount of sales every month, as long as they followed their call numbers. So as an example, when you jump on that website and you punch in the details of your business, first name, last name, contact number, once you put that contact number in, that was automatically in CRM. It's automatically created a lead. It's automatically allocated that lead to a team member, one of 10 persons, and that is then displaying on a plasma screen on the wall, and it will start flashing if you haven't called this thing within 3 minutes. So a lot of the time when I used to call someone, they're like, hi, friend, I'm calling from eWay. They said, I haven't even filled in the form yet. I'm like, I know, I can see. We really want your business, though. We're really dedicated and committed to wanting to give you a good service. Why have you come to us today? Tell us about what your needs are, and maybe we can help fill this out. So CRMs can be your best friend because they give you all the data, all the information. I could see all the parts of our website they've clicked on. I can see how long they've spent on each website or each page of our website. So when I say, hey, have you got any questions about a particular shopping cart? Are you using Shopify maybe? Because I know you've spent 3 minutes looking at the Shopify page on our website. They think I'm a rock star. They're like, oh my goodness, this guy's a mind reader. How could I not sign up with these guys? So technology and CRMs, if you can get that all integrated, now that is a very advanced example. eWay, like a Salesforce show pony, they go and do all their keynote speaking on how awesome they use it, to a point where Salesforce hadn't even seen a company use it the way they were using it. So it was again, pretty cool to be in that environment. To scale that back to an accountant bookkeeper scenario, you can still be able to deliver insightful things. So it's about being able to get your website to deliver you information, and then being able to follow up quickly. Don't get a lead today and then wait 3 or 4 days to call it. If you get a lead today, call it today. You want to talk about unique customer experience, that's it right there. It's just being the fastest to get to your customer. If you're the fastest to respond and you do a great job handling that conversation, again, you're more likely to win more customers, because people don't want to wait. They just want to get the answers now. That's why they're inquiring with you. So yeah, your CRM, without a CRM, you can't achieve any of that. The CRM is what gives you your structure. It's what allows you to create your follow-ups, understand what the opportunity is. You can obviously prioritise them by price, by amount, by who's been the most engaging, and these, depending on your CRM system, it can record those kinds of things. Again, that I've looked at the website 10 times more than the next guy. So for me personally as a salesman, I'm better to speak to the guy that's been on the website the longest, because I know they're the most engaged. They're the ones that might have the most questions in there. So you want to start with the most engaged prospects first and move through it. And that's again why it's important to have a CRM, as you can't really track or review all that information in the process. Mm-hmm. The second part you just sort of said there on if there's any systems that I'd recommend. Depending on what your needs are and what you want to track, there's a few you can check out. Insightly CRM is quite cool. Salesforce is great if you're a big organisation, but I wouldn't recommend it for a small starter. I know everyone talks about Salesforce all the time, and they win all these awards being number one. They're number one if you've got the cash to really customise the heck out of that thing. It's not something you buy off the shelf and it just works straight away. So it's really, you can check out, depending on the accounting system you're using internally as well. You might want to check out some practice management systems, like, say, it might be a Carbon or a Workflow Max, or I saw another one called Pascal Workflow or Jetpack Workflow. These are workflow systems built specifically for accountants and bookkeepers, and there's some aspect to that where they do borderline on being a CRM and being able to help you track your opportunities to then convert into new sales. Mm. So there's a couple of good options there.
Yeah, cool. What we can do in the follow-up email, I'll get some of those links from you, Trent, and we've got a few recommendations as well. So we can put those together for everyone who's listening. So just one more question, I guess, on software is, other apps that can help accountants sell. So one app that we both know pretty well would be Practice Ignition, which is part of Firm of the Future, and also a good Sydney-based company. And I think that's a really cool tool for doing engagements and selling and onboarding. Maybe talk a little bit about that, or some other apps that you know about that can help firms sell.
Yeah, definitely. Practice Ignition, I love those guys. They're amazing. Guy, Pearson and the team, they're a great bunch of people. And I think what they're doing is really cool, and there's nothing really out there that does it similar. So as you mentioned, it is engagement letters, but with payments as well, and that's kind of my sticking point. Being a payments man or coming from a payments background, I love the way they've incorporated it, because it's not easy to make that sort of stuff happen when you're setting up merchant facilities to take payments online. So, and we talk about unique customer experiences, being able to send out these digitally created engagement letters and then have the billing process so simplified on the end of it. As much as it seems a bit still like, oh, why would customers think that's awesome? It's because when they go and do it with someone else, it's like, here's my paper engagement, and then can you fill in this separate form, and then all this sort of stuff. But when you start blowing them away with advancements in technology, that's kind of like, oh wow, these guys know what's up. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Practice Ignition are an awesome tool for accountants to help them sell more. It's amazing. I just sort of mentioned it before, but yeah, Carbon's a good one that I'm loving at the moment to help accountants sell more. It's just because it helps keep them more organised, or it might help them display opportunities that are arising. But it is more of a workflow tool, but it will help you get better insights into your clients. It'll help you allocate all of your jobs out accordingly to your team members as well. So that's, again, a great nifty little tool. In terms of the pricing piece, I go to Mark Wickersham's Pricing in the Cloud software a little bit for people that are trying to move into a value pricing space. I haven't found anything myself, and I'm sure you guys might have something, but I haven't seen it yet, for pricing your services. But Mark's was part of our Firm of the Future campaign and still is to an extent. But yeah, if you go to pricinginthecloud.com and check out the way that he has built this software to help you price your services, it just again, if you're not strong at communicating the value of your services to your clients, this system can really help, because all you're doing is finding out the needs of your customers. So how many bank accounts you have, how many employees you've got on payroll, if you're GST registered, if you've got a debtors and creditors ledger. You can customize all these questions, and at the end of it, the scope of work is already laid out between your small, medium, and large package, and it just then tinkers the price based on your customers' needs. So for those that aren't familiar with value pricing, it's purely just a tailored fixed fee arrangement. So you're getting all the needs of your customers and then giving them 3 options to pick from based on what they require. So I'd say they're kind of my top apps for accountants to use, before not diving into the reporting aspect, where you can use things like your spotlights, BADMs, etc., to help drive that management accounting side of things to generate more revenues. I love that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, in terms of actually helping sell your services, Practice Ignition, Pricing in the Cloud, they're some of my top apps that I recommend to most people to check out.
Yeah, great. Dovetails nicely into a question that I think's quite close to Steve's heart.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, when you wrote that one, I think you set me up a little bit, because I don't think you should ever be selling by the hour. So this is sort of a Dorothy Dixer in a way question. And I know, obviously, you mentioned Mark Wickersham's work, and it's pricing is obviously a fair bit of what I do as well. But the question of selling accounting, and also the value-added services, which is really the core of a firm of the future, is a firm that's actually doing a lot more than just compliance. But this move to fixed pricing and ultimately to value pricing, Trent, I'd like to get your perspective, as I know that you're out there talking to firms striving to do this.
Sorry, Steve, the line just dropped at the end there. Sorry, mate, I just missed the last bit of what the question was.
Sorry about that. As I know that you're out there talking to accounting firms who are striving to move towards a fixed price or ultimately a value-priced basis, and rather than maybe the question that's purely on screen, but just some of the challenges, and also obviously at the end the benefits that you are seeing that firms, and particularly not just the traditional compliance services, but also the value-added services, which really are the core of the firm of the future.
Yep, yeah, cool. Thanks for clarifying again. I had a good example yesterday. I had 4 different people call me about pricing, which is a little more than normal, because I'm obviously talking about a whole bunch of stuff within the QuickBooks environment and all that sort of stuff. But the biggest example I could give to people, that they need to change their mindset on how they price their services first, because they struggle to try and get their head around hourly and then how we convert that into a value-based price. And the best way I can always tell people to change that mindset is to look at other industries and how they do value pricing. An example I was throwing around yesterday is when you go and get your car serviced, for example, is you go and give them the car, but you're not really basing it on how long it takes to service the car. It's based on the service they provide and what they've actually done to the car, regardless of how long it's taken them to do. Generally, if it's a bigger job to service, then it's obviously going to cost a lot more, and they'll outline exactly what those services are. But they end up talking to you, and they're building that relationship with you, saying, okay, look, well, based on what we've seen, we need to do X, Y, and Z, and we think you could add some more tyres, and we probably need to sort out your oil. I'm not a car person, by the way, so this will sound horrible, but that's kind of giving you a scenario that we can all relate to, as most of us drive a vehicle of some sort. That's how we kind of need to translate that to our accounting and our bookkeeping, so that we're not talking about how long it's taken us to do the job. We're talking about the service we're going to provide, and then giving a price point at the end of that. So for a lot of people, when they start doing value pricing, they will just look at how long they think it will take them, multiply that by the hourly rate, and say, okay, well, that's what your monthly fixed cost will be. Now, that doesn't necessarily, that can work if you're just starting that way, but I'd sort of encourage people to say, what's your hourly rate normally? Like, it's 50. It's like, okay, well, Australian average is 65 to 70 if you're a bookkeeper, and I think over 150 odd if you're an accountant. So how do we get this so that you can actually make better margins on what you're doing, and then through that streamline it so that you're spending less time on the software? And the reality is that's how this all came about, because as we move into cloud and we start doing things faster, and that we're moving in more of this value-added service, it's not based on how long it takes us to do the job. So if you're still hourly billing and you're moving into all these fast, efficient, value-added solutions, then you're killing your own revenues at the end of the day, because you can't charge someone by the hour or by the minute to get to do what you're doing. So the benefits I've seen for people is they've been able to increase their profits, increase their revenues by some have been 100%. Like, it's been sort of doubled and tripled, but it's because they weren't pricing correctly in the first place. But when you start putting a value on the services you're providing, and then displaying your added values of advisory and so forth as well, you're giving them more than the guy up the road. This is kind of back to what I was saying before about this whole unique customer experience. This is how you start to charge more of a premium price for your services, because you're giving them more than what they could have got before. So I've gone on a bit of a tangent with all that, but yeah, I don't know.
The analogy I often get people to have a look at in pricing is the airline. And if you travel Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, to use Australian examples, but the same wherever, we're all sitting on the same aluminium tin can, but the Brisbane to Sydney has about 53 different price points for a seat in economy. And we're all happy to pay different, depending upon how far out we booked, whether we're a gold, platinum, silver, bronze, all the rest of it. There's all these different price points. We've just got to remember, in our accounting and bookkeeping firm, price the customer. That's the real key at the end of the day, is understand their value. So I know we could keep going down on that topic forever, but a sales question that we probably should talk a little about is social selling, and get your perspective on that aspect, Trent.
Yeah, sure thing. I love social selling. For those that already may have seen me online, I'm online a lot, and I post a lot of stuff. But to be honest, it's very intentional for me. And a lot of the reason I do that is because it helps me stay engaged with all of my partners, customers, clients, whoever it may be. Every time I pick up the phone and I call someone, it's like, oh, Trent, I noticed you guys had storms this week. I saw your video, or I saw the view from your office, or I did all this. And I like to joke with people and say, you know what, it's great. You don't have that like, oh, how have you been? What have you been up to? It's like, oh, everyone knows what I'm up to. It makes my calls so much shorter. So, but within that, it helps because people have. Back to what I was kind of saying in that is people are engaged in what I'm doing, and it helps you tell a story about who you are, what your business is, and people become interested in the story of what you're doing. So a lot of people, when they're talking about social social selling, like, oh, I don't like putting myself out there, I don't like doing all that sort of stuff, and that's okay, that's fine. There's other ways you can do it through things like your business pages, and you're telling the story about your business, your accounting firm. That might be, for us, we do lunch here every Friday. Generally it's burritos or some sort of other food, but that ends up being a photo on our Twitter and our Facebook feeds, and now everyone I talk to is like, oh, can we come over for Burrito Fridays? I'm like, yeah, why not? It's Friday. But that's telling a story, and it's something that we can all engage with. And this is, social selling is about trying to just engage with your customers in other ways. It doesn't always have to be about the accounting and the bookkeeping, because if you put up 10 posts in a week about accounting and bookkeeping, you'll probably turn your audience off, if I'm being honest. It depends how big your audience is. You need to mix it up and really put a few different things in there that tell the story about who you are and how does that relate to your audience, your customers, at the end of the day. So that could be just, as I said before, the fact that you guys have a team. Show them your team. Show them that you're a bunch of awesome people that are just helping people. A lot of typical social posts we see are people out in the countryside taking photos saying, how good is this, I'm working in the cloud, like that. That's a typical one we see all the time. And it's just trying to show off the fact that we can work anywhere, we can work anytime. So there's a million ways you can adapt and jump on social selling. I think there was a cool stat I saw a while ago, but it was, 90% of people that were using social media and had a social media presence were, they found that people were actually able to find them for their services. The amount of people I ask if they have a Facebook page when I'm in a room full, still a lot of people that don't have a Facebook page, don't have a website, they're not listed on Google or anything like that. And again, my question always is like, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to grow your business? Are you trying to grow your practice? And even if you're not, even if you want to sell your business down the track, well, you want to make it really attractive for someone to buy. They understand you've got a strong social media presence. That's value. That's worth something to a business. So that's where everything's headed. It's not going away. So if you're one of those people where you're kind of like, no, I just don't want to do that, I would recommend that you find a champion in your firm. Generally, it might be the millennials, it might be someone that's a bit younger that's into that sort of thing. Employ them to be your social media champion. Get them to post at least once a day on your Facebook page. Get them on Twitter doing the same thing. Understand where your audience is before you do that. So I've just mentioned Twitter. That might not be for everyone. You might not have a lot of customers there, so you may not do it. But well and truly, I think the leader for most, especially this accounting bookkeeping space, is probably Facebook, just because 70% of the population of the world are on Facebook. So I can assume you'll probably have some customers on there, more than most. But yeah, so that's kind of my thing. I'm pretty passionate about social selling and social media in general. I use it as a communication tool as well. If you look at my Facebook Messenger, there's probably about 20 conversations going in there now with different bookkeepers, again, or accountants. That also means I don't have to call these people because we're already communicating in an instant live chat type scenario. You're always available to speak with people, and that's a free tool. It doesn't cost you anything to have that. So the more I have these Facebook Messenger chats or WhatsApp or tweets or LinkedIn or whatever, the more engaged and more approachable I become to the people I'm working with. And again, that just has a level of comfortability for those people because they know that they can either get me on Facebook or they can get me on my phone, or there's just so many ways to contact me that it's so easy to understand and it's so easy to work with, and that's what we want to try and emulate. You want people to be able to think they can just contact you appropriately, obviously in business hours. Don't respond after 5 and all that if you don't, if that's not you, sort of thing. Create your boundaries. But yeah, it adds another layer of how can we connect and work with you.
I think the aspect there of engagement, but I suppose the other aspect is we can use these social tools to demonstrate expertise, and at the end of the day, to sell the firm of the future, that's what we've got to be. We've got to be. The experience is key, but also we need to show that we understand our target market and can demonstrate that expertise. And these social tools allow that engagement and that demonstration aspect so easily to happen. So thanks for those comments, Matt.
Yeah, Trent, well, two things. One, you happy for me to share your social media details with everybody then at the end of the webinar? Because I'm sure they want to connect.
I feel a bit hypocritical if after that
Yeah.
big story I told that I wouldn't put that out. So yes, please, you can definitely find me on social media somewhere.
Yeah, cool. And number two, when can I come to Burrito Friday?
Well, it's Friday today, guys. So if you hang around for a couple of hours, we'll Skype you all back in, and we
Yeah.
can pretend to share burritos together. So I can just put it up to the camera like this and do the aeroplanes.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, listen, I was going to ask if you've got any final points, but I've got a question that's just come in from Liz, and she wanted to ask, what are the differences in selling to young entrepreneurs compared to older established businesses? So I guess maybe it's that millennials and I don't know. I'm not quite a millennial. I've missed that bit, but whoever's a bit older than that. So yeah. Do you think there's a
I fit in that category, so I can probably. I think to my earlier point, understand the needs of your customer. You might find some patterns and trends that are similar with your millennials, but when you start to ask them what's important to you, you'll understand exactly what that is. And I have no doubt that between millennials and an older generation that there probably will be some differences, but at the end of the day, there's some core similarities there. And I find millennials, there's a lot more they don't know because they are less experienced in life and they've seen a lot less than, say, some of the older generations as well. So they're less likely to know a lot more about, the accounting, bookkeeping side, advisory, compliance side, whereas your older generational people have been around a lot longer, so they've particularly worked in business for a lot longer, and they're more likely to probably understand your services, but they're looking for a few other different things, or you're talking to them more about their super self-managed super funds and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the younger generations are, they might want to hit you up with more online, and they're more socially savvy and generally and all that sort of stuff. So to simplify that back down is just know your customer, ask them plenty of questions to understand exactly what they need. And then go from there, like tailor your services around what their needs are. That's the best way that you'll win that person, rather than trying to fit them into 3 fixed buckets, because you've got to realise that 1,000 people or 100 people, they're not all going to fit comfortably into 3 different buckets, but they will fit comfortably in what they need because you've built it specifically for them.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. So if anyone else has got any questions, Trent's happy to stay around for a few more minutes. I just had one more. Well, basically, if you've got any final tips or a summing up, things that we haven't covered about selling, you don't have to have any, but if you've got any more, you can share.
I'd say just the closing comments is the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And you need to be in constant evaluation. So every time you speak to someone and you're trying to sell, analyze yourself. How did that go? Did we win the customer? Did we get it for the amount that we wanted? Have we undercharged? Like all these things. If you can evaluate every single time and be prepared to make changes, and you're constantly making changes to the way that you talk to your customers every single time, then again, you're more likely to win that customer because you're openly trying to work with them. So as long as you're open, you're asking the right questions about your customer. Don't make it about you. It's not about you. Well, there's a part of it's about you, but it's mainly about your customer. You need to make sure their needs are met, and then you might have your standards of how that fits in. Okay, look, cool, we want to take care of you, and this is how we're going to do it. And you might roll them out on, we're going to get everyone using, whether it's a shoebox or a receipt bank or whatever. That's what you need to be able to do to work with us, because that's going to help streamline their processes. So yeah, the more you work with your client, understand their needs, communicate, and just my wife says to me all the time, it's like, it's not practice makes perfect, it's practice makes permanent. It becomes part of your repertoire. It's second nature. It's like you're training a muscle. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it.
And just to add to that, I think sales is very process driven. I don't come from a sales background. It's something that I've had to learn. I was more from a marketing background. But people think I guess there's this kind of old stereotype of a salesperson, a kind of used car salesman type of guy or something like that. Whereas actually, I think you've touched on all the great points. Is it's about being attentive to people. It's about following up when you say you will and not when you won't, and very process driven. So it's not something that requires a personality type. It's something that you can practice and get better at.
It is something you can teach anyone, to be honest. Like, even people that say, like, no, I couldn't do it. That's about you. That's not about the process. That's about you not being able to change yourself, more than it is about you not physically being able to do it. Because believe me, people can change and do literally anything. Like, that's how awesome we are as people. But again, it all comes back to your mindset and applying yourself. If you work at it hard enough, I guarantee you will definitely get there. And to your point about process, sales is a process. That's literally all it is. It's knowing to say the right things at the right time. So when you're a salesman and you've done this for quite a while, there isn't nothing you haven't heard at the end of the day. Like, when someone gives you a barrier or an objection, you're like, okay, well, I've heard this before. But it's important, you always need to be able to know how to break through that barrier, know how to break through that objection. Well, talk to me a bit more why. My big thing with my teams here is I get them to challenge everything, not in a negative way at all, but when someone says, oh, I'm just a bit not sure, like, oh, do you mind if I ask you a bit more why about what you're unsure about, or what is it that's stopping you from working with us today? Is there anything that we can do that will actually help change and fix your mind? And a lot of the time I tell my guys, be direct as you want. Don't fluff about. Don't beat around the bush. You can be direct and still be positive. It's not about being direct and pushy. It's about just being direct so that you have some clarity around what is actually the situation. Because I think some people, especially people that are, you've got an inexperienced salesperson, and then you've got someone that doesn't like sales processes at all, and that thing can just go on forever because no one wants to talk about what's actually going on, and it just becomes a really long-winded conversation. But if you can get in there, control the conversation, understand the objection, okay, well, tell me a bit more about that. Tell me why. What can we do to make that easy for you? What's your barrier? What's stopping you from moving forward? Because if I can remove that barrier, would that make you go forward? Okay, done. Forget it. Barrier gone. That's always my philosophy for everything. Is just challenge everything, remove the barriers, and you're fine.
And ultimately, you're helping people. That's the thing that I think you need to get your head around. It's not that you're selling something to somebody just because you want to make some cash. That's the nice outcome for you. But it's that you're actually helping that person, and they want to pay you money to solve their problem. So you're actually being useful.
No, I'm with you. Like, look at why you're in business, and make sure you tell that story to your prospective customers. We're in business because we want to help people. Our mission and our value statement is that we're here to make your life so much easier that you couldn't have dreamed of going back to not having us in your business. And that, if you can translate that value and mission, then the rest is kind of natural. It's like, well, cool. Like, we're not doing this for free. Like, we're in business because we're passionate about it, and we're going to make your life easier. And through that course, by working together, this is what's going to happen. Absolutely.
So we've just had a question come in from Stephen, and this is a really interesting one, which I know Steve's got a strong opinion on, and I do too. So I'll be interested to get yours, Trent. Which is, do you recommend having pricing packages on the website? So kind of gold, silver, bronze with the price that people can sign up with. What's your thoughts on that? Or should you keep that stuff hidden?
No, it's good. I'd say, what's your intention? What are you trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you'll find out whether that's going to be a good thing or not. Now, I guess pros and cons, if you've got your prices on your website, then people may not even get through the front door because they're so scared off by your minimum or by your maximum or whatever it may be. At the same point, if you're trying to attract a certain type of customer and you know that those packages or that entry-level package is a good bait to get people through the door, then that may work. So it really is a personal perspective on how you do it, and I work with people that have gone both routes. Like I said before, the only trouble with a fixed package is that you can only fit someone into 3 packages, and if you're trying to add your extras on top of that, which you can definitely do, like by having your extra value adds, it's just about, at the end of the day, you want to be able to communicate between each plan. Like, a small plan is good, but most people take our medium because we give them more training and we do your best lodgement, and we're actually here to take you through every step of the journey. By not having it on the website, people are interested. They're like, okay, well, I like everything I've seen, but I don't know how much it costs, so I need to find out what that is. But again, you can't meet everyone's needs. Someone wants to know now. They don't want to have to pick up a phone or email or wait to find out. So I would just really, as I said before, what's your intention? What are you trying to achieve? And then work out what's your best strategy. And I'd recommend, tinker and play with it yourself. Everyone's going to have their opinion on what's going to work and what's not going to work. So yeah, I guess I'm sitting on the fence a bit, I guess. But again, for me, everything is always true to, I guess, everything I've said before. It's my customers is like, well, what do you need? What do you want to do? And then let me help you do that. Here's a couple of ways we can do that. Yeah. And then we go from there. So I'm on the fence because it's not about me.
Well, for completeness, I'll give my view. I think your website should demonstrate how you work with people, but I don't think they should have 3 fixed solid with prices on it. And then, because at the end of the day, accountants and bookkeepers, it's a relationship business, and you need to understand that client or that industry or whatever, but that client, in my belief, and design the packages and the prices accordingly. That doesn't mean that you don't have 3 or 4 or 5 offerings behind the scenes where the business is organised around, and primarily that'll be just a little bit of mix and matching for that client, but having them on the website and having prices, to me, particularly where you're seeing a lot of compliance-orientated packages, that's just opening up for more price competition than ever before. So there's my point of view. So and Matt's heard that one once or twice.
I knew you wouldn't sit on the fence on that one, but I'm not going to offer my opinions. Look, we've not got any more questions coming in, so we're going to wrap it up there unless one drops in the next minute or so. Just a couple more things. So I'm going to follow up with an email, which is a recording of this webinar, which has been absolutely fantastic. Trent, there's been so much in there that I think we could have done several webinars worth of material, but some really amazing insights there into the process of selling. So we'll follow up with a recording and your social media links, of course, so people can connect with you. Just a couple of other things about month of marketing. So you can win a free website this month if you come along to a website demo. So you can go to BizInc's website, bizinconline.com, and from there you can book a demo, and you'll go into a draw to win a website. And also, Steve, through his company Pricing Power, is giving away a free year of coaching. So visit transformationaladvisor.com/apply, and you can book a free strategy session. Oh, can't say that, strategy session. That's a good tongue twister. And you'll also go in the draw to win a free year of coaching there. Next event is a workshop which I'll be presenting. It's a topic that has been kind of a real hot one over the last year or so, which is about getting qualified leads from your website. Obviously referrals are the mainstay of your new business generation, but it is possible to get leads from your website, qualified good leads that turn into clients, and I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can do that. So that's next, because we're across a lot of time zones here, but you can see them on screen. So it's, if you're in the Australia, New Zealand time zone, so we're on Wednesday the 15th, or Tuesday the 14th if you're in the States, Canada, or UK. But if you can't make that, we'll send you out the recording anyway. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming along. I'd like to thank you, Trent, for coming along and sharing those insights. That's been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks for having me. It's been good to spend my morning with you gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, and enjoy your burritos later, and we'll wrap it up there.
You'll see it on Twitter at about 12:30.
Cool. All right, good stuff. Cheers, Trent.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, bye.